Lion attacks a hunter. But what happens next will surprise you. The sun barely kissed the horizon that morning, casting a warm golden hue over the savannah. The air was still, the kind of stillness that made it feel as though the entire world was holding its breath. A gentle breeze swirled the dust, and the tall grass swayed like a living sea. It was an almost surreal morning, as if nature itself had paused, waiting for something monumental to unfold. James Walker was no stranger to the wilderness of Africa. A seasoned hunter with years of experience tracking big game, he had come to see the land as both a friend and a challenge. Over the years, he had stalked lions, elephants, rhinos, and buffaloes. Each hunt had been a ritual, a balance of skill, respect, and survival. James prided himself on his expertise, on his understanding of the land and its creatures. But today, this was going to be different. Today, James had set his sights on one of the most elusive lions in the savannah, a magnificent male lion known for his strength and intelligence. He had heard stories about this lion, how he had evaded poachers, escaped traps, and outsmarted hunters for years. This lion was not just a target. He was a symbol of the wild, of survival against all odds. And James, in his mind, believed that bringing down this creature would be his greatest achievement. The tracker had spent the last few days deep in the heart of Savannah, following the lion's elusive trail. The wind was his ally as he moved carefully, step by step, in sync with the land. There were no sounds now except for his own footfalls in the dry grass and the occasional chirp of a bird in the distance. His heartbeat quickened as he finally saw the first sign of the lion, a set of large, unmistakable paw prints etched into the soft earth. They were fresh. James crouched low, his instincts kicking in. The hunter within him came alive, focused and sharp. He moved with precision, knowing the lion could be nearby. His rifle, heavy in his hands, felt like an extension of his own body. He was ready, eager to meet his prey, to conquer the king of the savannah. But nature, as James would soon learn, had other plans. Suddenly, as though the world had shifted, the sound of a rustle broke the silence. James froze, heart thumping in his chest. His sharp eyes scanned the underbrush, but all he could see were shadows. He crept closer, every muscle tense with anticipation. Then, through the brush, a shape emerged, a massive lion. The beast stood tall, its golden mane flowing like a crown in the morning light. The lion's body was a masterpiece of power and grace, his presence commanding the very air around him. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. James' breath caught at his throat as the lion's piercing eyes met his. It wasn't fear or anger James saw in the lion's gaze. Instead, it was something much deeper, a knowing. The lion had seen him before he even raised his rifle. It was as if the lion understood exactly why James was there, and in that moment the hunter and the hunted were caught in a standoff that transcended mere survival. The air was thick with tension, but James, despite the fear and awe rushing through him, raised his rifle. He couldn't back down now. His mind raced with thoughts of glory, of bringing home a trophy to prove his dominance over nature. But just as he prepared to take the shot, something unexpected happened. The lion charged. In the blink of an eye, the lion leaped toward him with the force of a freight train. James barely had time to react. His rifle slipped from his grasp, and before he could even draw a breath, the lion's massive paws slammed into his chest, sending him sprawling backward onto the ground. The impact knocked the wind out of him. His heart pounded, his vision blurred with the force of the blow. He tried to gasp for air, his body helpless beneath the lion's weight. But the lion didn't strike. Instead, he stood over James, his heavy paws pinning him to the earth. The hunter's life hung in the balance. James could feel the heat of the lion's breath, and for a fleeting moment, he thought his time had come. His pulse raced as the lion's eyes bore into him. But it wasn't just aggression in those eyes. There was something else, something that James couldn't quite place. Then, something astonishing happened. The lion, instead of delivering the fatal blow, stepped back. The pressure on James' chest lessened as the lion withdrew, pacing around him, his every movement calculated and slow. The lion circled James, watching him intently, his powerful form radiating strength and authority. It was as if the beast was assessing the hunter not as prey, but as something else. James, his heart still pounding, slowly began to rise from the ground. His hands shook, his mind struggling to make sense of the situation. This was not the behavior of a typical predator. Lions didn't spare their prey. And yet, here he was alive, and for reasons he couldn't fathom, the lion had spared him. What was this? Mercy? Understanding? As James stood, still too shaken to make a move, the lion finally let out a low, rumbling growl, a sound that sent shivers down his spine. But instead of attacking, the lion turned and slowly walked away, disappearing into the tall grass like a shadow, leaving James alone in the silence of Savannah. For what seemed like an eternity, James stood there, frozen. His mind was a whirlwind of confusion. He had come so close to death, yet the lion had not killed him. Instead, it had let him go. There was no victory in James' heart now, no triumph, only an overwhelming sense of gratitude and disbelief. It wasn't until the sun began to set that James finally gathered the strength to move. He had survived, but it felt wrong. The glory he had once sought seemed hollow in the face of the lion's mercy. He could no longer justify his actions. The hunt was over, and the life he had once known was no longer something he could return to with pride. The next few days were filled with an aching emptiness. James stayed in the savannah, away from his camp, away from the distractions of civilization. He watched the lions from afar. This proud, regal species that had once seemed like a target, but now seemed like guardians of the land. He observed how they interacted with their young, how the males protected their prides, how the females worked together to raise their cubs. There was a bond between them, a deep connection that James couldn't ignore. But the image that haunted him the most was that of the lion's eyes. It wasn't just a moment of mercy. The lion had looked at him as if he knew something, as if he understood something deeper about the hunter before him. And it wasn't just a passing glance. The lion had spared him for a reason, and that reason became clearer when James encountered poachers. One day, while walking near the same spot where the lion had spared his life, James saw the unmistakable signs of human intrusion. Poachers were setting traps, preparing to capture the lions for illegal trade. Anger surged through James like wildfire. He knew he couldn't stand by and watch this happen. The land he had once hunted on was now a place of reverence, and he was its protector. He couldn't let these men destroy what he'd come to love and respect. With a sense of purpose, James approached the poachers, and the confrontation was swift. Using his experience, he disarmed them, making sure they wouldn't harm the animals any longer. The authorities were called, and the poachers were arrested. But as James watched the men being taken away, he realized that his life had completely changed. He was no longer the hunter. He was a protector. And as if on cue, the lion appeared again. This time, he didn't charge. He didn't even growl. The lion simply stood at the edge of the clearing, watching James with those piercing eyes. And in that moment, James understood. The lion had known all along. He hadn't spared him to show mercy. He had spared him to teach him, to show him a new way of living, a new purpose. James had been given a second chance. The lion had shown him the way to redemption. As the lion turned and disappeared back into the savannah, James knew that his life would never be the same. He had been given a new purpose, one that was rooted in compassion, understanding, and respect for all life. The hunter had become a guardian, dedicated to protecting the lions and all the creatures of the savannah. From that day forward, James worked alongside conservationists, working tirelessly to protect the lion from poachers and ensure their survival. He dedicated his life to preserving the land that had once been his hunting ground, transforming it into a sanctuary for the majestic creatures he had once sought to kill. The lion had attacked him, yes, but it was in that attack that James had found his true calling. The lion had shown him that mercy, compassion, and respect were the true strengths of the wild, and for that, James would be forever grateful.